Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. And our top story today, offices mimic hotel amenities to lure back workers. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Deidre Woolard of the Motley Fool. Deidre, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me back.
All right, so let's talk about this. Workers slowly coming back. We're going to talk about some of the numbers in our second segment. But what I find is intriguing is now offices are upping their game to have hotel-like amenities to attract workers out of their homes. Give us your reaction to this.
Well, it just makes sense because everyone got very used to being at home. They got used to having a couch and a refrigerator and feeling very, very comfortable. And so the idea of putting on business clothes, commuting, going to an office, sitting in a very hard chair at a very hard desk just doesn't appeal anymore. So this is leading to all sorts of changes in amenities, from adding things like dry cleaning or medical services or anything that'll bring people back to the office, and also a change in furniture because we don't like to sit on hard seats anymore.
Yeah. So, do you think that that companies can compete with being at home? I mean, let's unpack that a little bit, because we all got really spoiled if we were able to work remotely to do that. I mean, there are some businesses where you can't. You have to be in the office. You have to be part of a manufacturing organization, right? So there are some jobs you can't do from home. But for a lot of us, being able to Zoom in, there's something to be said about that. And whether you build an arboretum, which is nice. Look, I feel like in a way, Deidre, we're going back to the go-go late 90s and the 2000s, where a lot of these tech startups had pool tables and, as you're describing, cleaners, et cetera. So can companies compete?
Oh, companies can absolutely compete. One of the things that we're seeing from the real estate perspective is what they call a flight to quality, which basically means that if you have Class A, top of the line office space, it's probably easier to lease right now than Class B or Class C, which is maybe older offices, maybe a little more traditional. I don't think it's quite the same as the early 2000s, because what people want is different. They want less of they don't really care about the pool tables and things like that, but what they really care about is wellness amenities, anything that makes their lives better in any way. So sometimes that's healthy food. Sometimes it's not just gyms, but having classes and things like that. It's anything that you could do outside of the home. Offices want you to be able to do that at the office. And that's part of the allure to get people back to the city, really.
In your estimation, does this appeal to a certain demographic? Is it more younger, skewing younger? Like, hey, that people are, what I always have heard about millennials and Gen Z is they're more experience-based. Now, I'll tell you, I like experiences too. So if you can draw me out, I'll participate. But do you think that this skews to a particular age range?
Well, this is a thing that I find really fascinating right now, is because we're talking a lot about human behavior, right? So if you're an older worker, you've probably spent enough time in the office. There's probably nothing that the office is going to have for you in and of itself. You probably maybe have a family, you have kids, so you want things that kind of fit with your lifestyle. If you're younger and this is your first office experience, you're really looking for that camaraderie. You're looking for that connection. You're looking for an office experience. And so that, I think, is the difference. At the Motley Fool, we have some of the people that we've hired haven't been to our headquarters yet, and they've worked with the company over a year. And one of the things we want people to have, we want them to have that connection. And that's really what offices are becoming about. We're seeing companies think of the office not just as a place where people go to work, but more a place where people go to connect with the brand and to feel part of something, to feel that connection with the company itself.
Yeah, I agree. It's about community. Community is important. And brands now globally, you look at some of these brands, I mean, they're heavily invested in, I don't know if the right word is social causes, but like impact causes, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's climate, whether it's mental health. I was just talking to someone about mental health initiatives. I think people want to connect at all ranges. And by the way, having an older worker or more mature workers, I like to refer to them, it allows for mentorship. Mentorship, I think, has really taken kind of fallen off because it's really hard to mentor somebody through Zoom or Teams, Deidre.
This is all about how you build those connections. And so companies are trying to figure out how to do that omnichannel, the same way you think about retail being omnichannel, right? You have the experience where you're buying things on an app or in a store and kind of experiencing the brand in different ways. It's the same thing with offices, that people are thinking not just about office versus home, but how you connect the two, how workers feel connected via things like Slack, then Zoom, then in-person meetings, how you connect all of that together to give people this really sort of 360 experience of what it is to work for a company.
When you look at the numbers, and again, we're going to talk about why or why not office workers are coming back slower than would be expected, but when you look at the numbers in Manhattan, in Chicago, some of the big cities, are people coming back to work at the pace expected, or is it still in dribs and drabs, as depending on what area and what is affected, it will affect the rates?
It definitely varies by area. We could talk about that in the second segment. But I think the thing that's interesting is that there's just been this slow pushback, because a lot of deadlines, people said people were going to be in the office by September. So we were really looking at that. And then companies slowly pushed back their deadlines. Now we're starting to see people be required to be in the office maybe by the first of the year, maybe by spring. So it's really, the deadlines keep moving. I do believe eventually we are going to get back above that 50, 60% capacity, but that's not where we're at right now.
Is it opportunistic for a company that is looking to have a footprint in a city, whether it's New York, whether it's Chicago, to go out and find leasing? Is leasing a property or even buying a property, if you choose, if you're somehow flush with cash? I know a lot of businesses really challenged right now, but are you seeing attractive leasing deals in some of these major metropolises?
Well, I think it's interesting because one of the things we are seeing is, I talked before about that flight to quality. Class A leasing is still going pretty quickly. Top tier offices leases are getting snapped up. It's that middle ground. It's that Class B, Class C office space that's starting to become available for both sale and lease. The question is what to do with that in the future. Are people going to want to be in those kinds of offices? Are we going to get back to a more traditional office lifestyle, and how long will that take? My feeling is we probably will, but it's going to be a lot slower than people thought. One of the things that, if you study economics at all, we all have awfully short memories, and this is going to fade from view just like every other thing that we've ever gone through. And I believe that office life will return to a more normal kind of experience within the next 5 years.
Well put, Deidre. Well, let's take a very quick break. When we come back, as Deidre said and I said, we're going to be talking about office workers returning to the office, but albeit a little bit slower than expected. Why? You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking this morning to Deidre Woolard of the Motley Fool. Deidre, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Thank you.
So we talked in the first segment. I mean, we kind of did it. I guess I kind of did it backwards, but we talked in the first, and leave it to me to do that. But we talked in the first segment about getting workers to come back and having hotel-like amenities in some of these properties. But let's talk about, are workers coming back? As I said, I alluded it was a little bit slower than usual. What's your perspective here?
Yeah, it's definitely slower than usual, especially in big cities. New York is dragging behind just about every city. The national average is around 37%. New York has definitely been below that. It's getting better. I'm starting to hear more anecdotal evidence of people going back to the office and people really enjoying going back to the office. That's the interesting thing, is there is a little bit of that rebound feeling of, hey, this is a new thing. It's exciting to be back here. It's exciting to see other people and go get coffee and get into that routine. So there's a little bit of that happening, but it still isn't widespread. And the interesting thing is just how much it's varying geographically. Some of that is how you get to work. Commuting. People still don't feel comfortable on public transit. And I think that is what is slowing down some of the return to office in bigger cities.
Yeah, and for very good reason. People concerned about contracting the virus, or, it's just a pain in the tuchus sometimes to get up and down the 7 line in Manhattan. Let's talk about mandating that people come back to the office. When you mandate something, Deidre, oftentimes you get resistance, and I think some companies that have mandated have met that resistance. But it seems that the companies that are being a little bit more balanced in that regard, having a little bit better time in attracting workers to come back on your own time, do your work. Again, it's predicated on whether or not you can do your job, quite frankly. It's hard to deliver mail remotely.
Yeah, these trends are really about the knowledge workers more than manufacturing or things like that. And we've heard so much about the Great Resignation. I think that's been a little overhyped, but I do think that flexibility is now something that is really, really desirable. And you see it in jobs, in recruiting. You see companies sort of leading with that, is that you can work remotely, or you can have a hybrid situation, or you can have flexible hours. Any type of flexibility right now is really one of the things that workers are looking for. And it's kind of leading to some really sort of shifts in how we work. So if I'm working during normal business hours, maybe my coworker isn't, then we have to think how to work asynchronously. Is it through Slack? Do we try to schedule our meetings for the times that we're both going to be on, and then do independent work on the times when we're not on the same page? So it's really, it's changing how we fundamentally work, and it's leading to a reliance on more tools like Slack, Trello, Monday, all of those different types of productivity tools.
Let's talk about child caregiving as well. That obviously was a big issue during the pandemic when schools were not open, but also adult caregiving too. If you have become a caregiver for a loved one, whether a child or an adult, this work from home allows you more flexibility. I have to think that maybe some older workers who are taking care of a loved one or even parents might say, hey, we need to have some balance. And maybe this is kind of where those amenities that we were talking about in the first segment kind of come into play. Is there childcare? Is there a way for the company to help get caregiving for a parent that's in need?
Yeah, I think resources are absolutely as important as amenities. And you make a good point about caring for seniors, because so many people took their parents out of assisted living or senior living during the pandemic. Senior living is getting back to normal. People are going back. They are feeling safe. There's new protocols in place. But we still see a lot of parents living at home with people who need to go back to the office. And one of the things that we've really heard about is the impact on women in on this. This is really, women tend to be the caregivers both with their parents and with children, and so that's really impacting whether or not they can go back to work if they're required to be in the office.
Yeah, well, I know that very important thing. As we age, we need help, and it's important to take care of family members, but also help other people that are dealing with this as well. Deidre, when you look at, let me just, this is from left field or right field, hotels. How is the hotel industry doing? Are they reopened for business? Are they attracting more business travel? Are cities like New York and Chicago and Los Angeles seeing more people come in for business and therefore needing hotel places to stay?
Well, we saw leisure travel come back way before business travel. So there's still that going on. And I think this is the first holiday season that you're starting to see hotels put those big displays back in the lobby, the big trees, having Santa, having gingerbread, things like that. All of that stuff is kind of back. And so that is going to increase holiday travel. Business travel, we're starting to see conferences, but I've also seen several organizations that said they were going to do their conference live, then pivot to a hybrid model or go fully remote, because partly the attendance just isn't there. Inman Real Estate, they had their conference last week, and attendance was good, but not quite where it used to be from what I could tell. So you're really seeing conferences aren't quite back yet. And so there's that aspect of business travel, as well as there just really isn't that business travel for meetings the way that it used to be. And that's still going to take a while to come back.
Last question, Deidre. Let's talk about, I think you mentioned this, supply chain. There's a shortage of workers. There's a lot of headwinds economically, inflation. How important is that flexibility for an employer to attract workers? I mean, again, going back to the mandate conversation, if you mandate everyone's got to be in, I would think that's a turnoff for anybody who's looking for work. You need to incentivize people to come back. So these amenities, these opportunities to work with a great group of people, but also have flexibility, I think probably would trump one business over another, or skew towards one business versus the other.
Yeah, it's definitely something that employers are leading with. And another thing that we're seeing is really the spreading out of the office. So one of the things that's interesting is New York office we talked about is struggling. Sunbelt office is kind of booming because we saw a lot of migration. You and I have talked about this before, to the Sunbelt during the pandemic and before that. We're seeing companies like Visa. They just leased 123,000 square feet at a big building in Atlanta. So you're seeing companies think about, instead of bringing the workers to the office, almost trying to bring the office to the workers and be like, oh, if you're out in the suburbs, we have a smaller office here that you could work at some of the time, and really kind of spreading it out so that people have more flexibility. And a lot of this just comes down to the fact that it's really expensive to live in cities, and people are seeking opportunities where they can live affordably and have a better quality of life.
Yeah, Deidre, I always said that if someone offered me a cot, a place to sleep, and some smoothies, and a place to work out, I'd be there in a heartbeat. And you know what? My wife would appreciate that. Deidre Wooler, it's always great to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back again on the program very soon.
Thank you.
That wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, the Morning Pulse. We're back again tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.